finish Jai Radha Madhava and wish everyone a great Balram Jayanti and also a very, very nice Raksha Bandhan, celebrating the relationship between a brother and sister. So, more important of the two and very significant event is the Balram Jayanti day today. Lord Balram will speak about him for a few minutes, and then depending on what the attendance is today, we'll continue with the Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise, we'll pull it off for next week. So Lord Balram is actually like the second body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So he has a different body, but he is the same person, one and the same identity as Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who assists the Lord in all the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. So there's hardly any Leela of the Lord when Balaram is not present. So Lord Balaram is in fact the source of the entire spiritual world. He is the Adi Guru and considered as the original spiritual master for all of us. So we all know that he takes the role of the elder brother of Sri Krishna, and he also happens to be the, as per the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first expansion of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is considered the, we all have discussed the qualities of the Lord, he is Sat, Chit and Ananda. So Sat is the eternity of existence, Chit is the knowledge potency of the Lord, and Ananda is the bliss potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So as the first expansion of Sri Krishna, Balaram is considered the Sat potency of the Lord, or the Sandhini Shakti of the Lord, which is the internal potency of the Lord. That is the potency which gives the eternal existence. So he serves the Lord in all the rasas, including the Shantaras. So, what are the 5 primary rasas of the Lord? The basic rasa is Shantaras, and then we have the Dasyaras, and then we have the Vatsalyaras, and then we have the Sakyaras, and the topmost rasa is the Madhurya rasa of the Lord. So, Balaram, as the supreme assistant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, Balaram actually has relationships with the Lord in all the 5 rasas. So even in the mode of Shantaras, he has an association with the Lord. So as Shantaras, he is manifesting himself as all the different puja paraphernalia of the Lord, and all the paraphernalia of the Lord represents Lord Balaram. So we've all seen how the musical instruments are used, the mridanga, the harmonium, and then when we're going to do arti for the Lord, there are various puja paraphernalia that are arranged. So actually the puja paraphernalia, the musical instruments like the mridanga and harmonium, are all an expression of the relationship of Balaram as the supreme assistant of the Lord in Shantaras. So Krishna first expands himself as Balaram, and then Balaram then expands into the Chaturvyuha forms of Aniruddha, Vasudev, Shankarshan, and Pradyumna. Then he expands himself as Narayan, and then the expansion takes place of the four Purusha avatars of the Lord, which are the as Mahavishnu or Karuno Dakashayi Vishnu is the first expansion, and then there is the Shiro Dakashayi Vishnu, and then there is a Garbo Dakashayi Vishnu. And then, besides that, the fourth expansion as Purusha avatar is Ananta or Ananta Shesh, which is actually another form of Balaram. So we understand that from the scriptural perspective, he is the important and the primary assistant of the Supreme Personality of God, Shri Krishna, who associates with the Lord in all the five different rasas of the Lord. So there is no mellow of the Lord or no pastime of the Lord when Balaram's presence is not there. So, as we understand, Krishna also expands as Srimati Radharani, and Srimati Radharani is the Haladini potency or the bliss potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, um, so all these expansions are non-different from the Lord, and Balaram, as we can see, is the first expansion of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then we discuss about the descent of Balaram to the material world. The Lord appears in the material world always, as we have seen, with the associates and with the paraphernalia. So Balaram was the seventh child in the womb of Devaki, and Devaki knew that Balaram was a divine child, and when she felt that this child has got some divine qualities, Kamsa was also in a state of fear. So the prophecy was that the eighth child of Devaki would kill Krishna and would be a threat, Kamsa would be a threat to his life, Kamsa's life. But somehow Kamsa got a feeling that there was a trick played by prophecy, and maybe the seventh child could be the danger child for Kamsa. So, seeing the danger that could come upon Balaram, the Lord instructed Yogamaya, his internal potency, to transform the unborn child to the womb of Rohini. So then we know that Balaram was actually born in Gokul. So as soon as he was born, Gargamuni revealed to Rohini that she was actually carrying Vasudev's baby. So Balaram had different names. As Gargamuni explained, that there could be that this child would be called by different names. The first primary name being Balarama. The root word in Balarama is Bala, or signifying strength. So Balarama was a person non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can manifest unlimited amount of Bala or strength. Then, since there was a transfer from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini, he was also called as Shankarshan. Then Balaram is also known as Anantashesh, or is called Rohini Nandan, or the son of Rohini. So Balaram also has the name of Rohini Nandan. He is also called as Dauji. Dauji means he is the elder brother. We all know that Balaram took the manifest himself as the elder brother of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Balaram was extremely. Then we need to meditate today on how Balaram looks as a person, because only then we can come to the state of smaranam. All the pastimes of the Lord are actually meant for Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, and Smaranam. Shravanam is we get the opportunity of hearing about the Lord, and then when we hear about the Lord and his pastimes, then we do kirtan, or we start speaking and discussing about the glorious pastimes of the Lord. By hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, what happens is smaranam. So you enter into a state of constant remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it is Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam is uh, made possible because the Lord manifests his pastimes in the material world. So, like we have repeatedly said, that the Lord can do whatever he's supposed to do sitting in Golok Dham. What does he say about the reason for his appearance? He says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharataha abhyutanam adarmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. So actually, he manifests himself for what purpose? Whenever there is a decline in religious practices and whenever there is an increase in irreligion, then he manifests himself tadatmanam srijamyaham. So srijamyaham is very important in this verse, that the Lord does not get born and does not die like any of us in the material world. So Srijami clearly means that he manifests himself with a purpose. What are those purposes? In the next verse, in the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is a famous verse, he says, I come and I do and commit myself to fulfillment of three purposes. What are those three purposes? Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya cha dushkritam, dharma samstarpanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So he says that I come srijamyaham, I manifest myself in the material world to protect the devotees, paritranaya sadhunam, and then I do also vinashaya cha dushkritam. So I destroy the demons, and then dharma samstarpanarthaya, I re-establish the principles of religion. So these are the three purposes with which Krishna comes to the material world. But these are the technical reasons why Krishna manifests himself in the material world. The main reason why he comes to the material world is actually to have pastimes with his devotees in the material world, which gives him maximum pleasure. And through the performance of his pastimes, it facilitates Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam. So it facilitates hearing, chanting, and remembrance of the Lord at all times. So when the remembrance of the Lord puts us in a state of continuous and spontaneous and eternal remembrance or smaranam, that is perfection in spiritual life. So the Lord manifests himself as Balaram and does various pastimes with the Supreme Personality of Godhead to facilitate Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam. So the Bhagavatam describes how Balaram was looking, the looks of Balaram. Every little aspect of the lordships, Krishna and Balaram, is so important to achieve these goals of Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam, which is leading us to spiritual perfection. So, Lord Balaram, the features of Lord Balaram are explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It says that he has got a very powerful demeanor in himself. and he's got his hair tied behind with a graceful top knot. So the knot on his hair was right in the top of the head. So his hair is always tied. He has unlike Sri Krishna, he has a fair complexion, and it is described that he has the color of crystal. So he wears earrings. He has a very, very youthful luster. And then he wears armlets and bracelets. He's always dressed in blue garments, and he wears a garland of forest flowers, and he wears also jewel anklets. So the beauty of Balaram, it is said, that it eclipses many moons put together. So, and just by the aroma that he carries, he has the capacity to destroy armies of enemies, not just one or two, but armies of enemies are destroyed just by the aroma carried by Balaram. So, Balaram, of course, knows that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is non-different from Sri Krishna and his primary expansion, but he never lets him alone, and he is always there to protect Krishna at all times. So, because the role that he takes on is the assistant to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So, as an assistant, he is always playing the role of a protective elder brother. So, he never leaves Krishna wherever Krishna goes. So, Balaram individually has got many, many pastimes which we can list out. So, we all know how Balaram kills Denukasura, the forest of Thalavan, where devotees wouldn't dare to enter. So there was, because of the presence of this donkey demon or ass demon, Denukasura, so they just enter the forest and then gives a shake to the trees, and that agitates Denukasura, and Denukasura first attacks Balaram and then gets killed by Balaram very easily. Balaram just holds him by the hind legs and then rotates him 3 or 4 times, and is killed by the pressure exerted by Balaram, and then he is thrown over the trees in the Talavan forest. So Denukasura was killed by Balaram. Then we also discussed in the Krishna Katha how there was a demon called Pralambasura. So Pralambasura actually also was killed by Balaram, and Pralambasura is, the cowherd boys of Vrindavan were playing some games. So Pralambasura enters and participates in the game, coming in the disguise of a cowherd boy. And then the game goes something like this. There were two opposing parties, and one boy from each would fight with each other. And whoever wins the battle, the winner has to be carried on the shoulder by the loser. So Pralambasura decides to lose when he was fighting with Balaram, and then, as a punishment now, the loser has to carry Balaram on his shoulder. So this was all panning out as a perfect plan which Pralambasura had in his heart. So therefore, immediately, Pralambasura, what did he do? Pralambasura was carrying Balaram on his shoulders, and as he was carrying him on his shoulders, he wanted to take him inside the forest to a secluded place and kill Balaram there, which was the purpose of participating in the game of the cowherd boys. So, but as he was carrying him on the shoulders, Balaram very well knew the purpose of Pralambasura, and he started exerting too much pressure on the Asura, whereby the form of a cowherd boy was lost, and Pralambasura presented himself in his original form and like a big demon, and he couldn't bear the pressure exerted by the small boy Balaram. And at the end, Balaram just split the head of the demon into two, and the demon lost his life. So he killed Dhenukasura, he killed Pralambasura. Like this, Balaram had very many pastimes also. We also know from one of his other pastimes how he chastised Yamuna Devi. So actually, Balaram has his own gopi or cowherd girlfriends in the land of Vraja, and it was on the day when he decided to have a Rasa Yatra or Balaram's Rasa Yatra with gopis, and he summoned the Yamuna River to create opulent conditions there so that um, the Rasa Yatra can be performed, Leela can be performed by Balaram with the gopis of Raja in a very opulent surroundings. So there was no response from Yamuna Devi. Yamuna Devi was not paying attention to the request of Balaram, and Balaram immediately becomes angry, picked up his cloth, and started dragging Yamuna to the shores of Raja. So then, of course, realization dawned on Yamuna Devi. She immediately comes and begs for forgiveness from Balaram. And then Balaram's wife's name, people may know already. Wife's name was Raivata, and no, actually her name was Revati. She was the a daughter of the king Raivata. Now, Raivata was a king from the earlier Yuga, and over the entire period of the earlier Yuga, in fact, Raivata was a king in the Satya Yuga. So Revati was also born in Satya Yuga, but she lasted throughout the Satya Yuga, the Treta Yuga, and then the Dwapar Yuga as well. So she lasted all these three yugas, and she met Balaram in Dwapar Yuga. So since she had lasted over millions and millions of lives, years rather, throughout Satya Yuga, and then through Treta Yuga, then Dwapar Yuga. So in Dwapar Yuga, she was to be married to Balaram. So when she was to be married to Balaram, what happens then? She had assumed a rather huge form because she has kept on growing and growing and growing through the different yugas, and now she has to marry uh, Balaram, and Balaram immediately sees that his to-be wife is so huge, and there was a need to kind of shrink her to an appropriate size. So that was done in a jiffy. Again, Balaram uses his plow and shrinks the size of his to-be wife Revati, who was the daughter of King Raivata. And then, what is Balaram's connection with Mahabharata? We never hear of Balaram participating in the battle of Mahabharata. Balaram was actually equally affectionate to the Pandavas and the Kauravas. In fact, he was the uh, teacher of Bhima and Duryodhana. So both were students of Mace War. To Balaram was their guru or teacher, and therefore, since he was teacher for the important warriors from both the sides, Bhima of the Pandava, and Duryodhana, who was a Kaurava. So he was a teacher for both, and he was appreciative of both his students. In fact, he always considered that Duryodhana had a superior technique when it came to maze fighting. But at the same time, he also appreciated Bhima for having the raw physical strength to fight in any battle. In any case, since both of them were students, he refused to take any part in the war of Mahabharata. And during the time of the war, he actually went on an extended pilgrimage. So that was Balaram's role in the Mahabharata. And then in the Srimad Bhagavatam as well, Balaram has a role to play. So there was a great rishi who was called as Romaharshana Suta. He was actually a disciple of Vyasadeva. So he was one of the important sages. So there were roughly about 10,000 sages in Naimisharanya, where it was a chosen place for doing 1,000-year sacrifice. So this 1,000-year sacrifice was being done because the sages could see that the Kali Yuga is coming, and Kali Yuga is going to be such a degraded time, and therefore they wanted to counteract the ill effects of the age of Kali. So it is said that in Kali Yuga there are certain qualities described of the population in Kali Yuga. That is prayena alpa ayushaha sabhya kalau asmin yuge jana mandaha sumanda matayo manda bhagya hi upadruta. So people in Kali Yuga are alpa ayushaha. So they have very short lives, and then they are also unlucky, manda bhagya. They are also manda, they are lazy, they are upadruta, they are quarrelsome. So these are the qualities of people in Kali Yuga. So it's not a surprise. We can see every of these qualities being manifest in the population in Kali Yuga. So when this was being seen by the sages, so the sages are generally people who have got a good degree of self-satisfaction already, because they are self-realized souls. But even though they are self-realized souls, the sages are happy in themselves, but they are considered to be people who are paradukka dukhi. So when they see the um, dukkha, or when they see the people in distress, then they also feel distressed. So they always want to do paro upakar to the people of the world. So even though they are self satisfied, they want everybody to be directed towards a situation of self satisfied nature. So this is the objective of the sages, who are all paradukha dukkis. If the others are in a state of grief, they also feel grieved in that situation. So therefore the sages had assembled for 1,000-year sacrifice to counteract the ill effects of the age of Kali. So it was like the end of Dwapara Yuga, and they could see Kali coming and the ill effects of the Kali settling in, and therefore they had assembled for 1,000-year sacrifice. Well, they could not do much to counteract the ill effects of the age of Kali. Anyway, one of the rishis was a very prominent rishi, Roma Harshana. He was there in that assembly of sages, and Lord Balaram entered the place where the sacrifice was about to take place, and everybody naturally, seeing his lordship Balaram come there, immediately stood up. But for some reason, Roma Harshana was not standing up as a mark of respect. So the proper etiquettes have always to be followed, and Lord Balaram gets upset that Roma Harshana does not even show respect when I came. So therefore, he takes a blade of grass, and with that blade of grass, he actually kills Roma Harshana Suta, and then he installs Suta Goswami, the son of Roma Harshana, as the head of the assembly of the sages. So Suta Goswami is known as the Kulapati. So he was the entire pack of 10,000 sages who had assembled there. He was the head of all the sages. So it was one of the most august audiences about to listen to Srimad Bhagavatam. So therefore, Suta Goswami was appointed as the head of the sages, and his father, Romaharshan Suta, for having shown disrespect to Balaram, was killed by just a blade of grass by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Balaram. So that was the kind of potency that Balaram had. Then Balaram is a kind of, he exemplifies service attitude to Krishna. His mission is always to be in service to Krishna. And since that is the topmost activity, we must also consider him as the Adi Guru, because that is the thing which we have to learn as to how to be in a service attitude to Krishna and how to serve Krishna perfectly. So that indeed is the perfection in spiritual life. So since Balaram exemplifies that, he is considered as the Adi Guru for the entire population. So as he expands into different Vishnus, it is to be considered that he is the creator of the material world and is also the maintainer of the spiritual world. So he is the very paraphernalia of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he is our eternal companion, and he comes down in Treta Yuga as the younger brother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramchandra. Is considered to be Lakshmana in Treta Yuga during Lord Ramchandra's pastimes. And during this pastime, in Krishna's pastimes, in Dwapar Yuga, he comes down as an elder brother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then in the Kali Yuga, we have all heard of the personality Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in Kali Yuga, he comes down as Lord Nityananda, who is the primary associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So actually, it is considered that without the mercy of Nityananda, or without the mercy of Balaram, or without the mercy of Lakshman, we can never get the service to Lord Ram, we can never get the service to Lord Krishna, and we can never get the service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is none other than Krishna himself. So, even though he is non-different from the Lord, he takes on the role of the primary assistant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, our responsibility is to serve the primary associate of the Lord, and we have to be eternally in the mood of being a servant to the servant of the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So, in the Kali Yuga pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when the role of Balaram was taken by Lord Nityananda, we've seen how the Lord is extremely merciful. And once there were two very, very sinful people, Jagai and Madai, who were born in good family background, but however, because they took to very sinful life, they were very, very condescending and rude to the devotees, and they would always cause a lot of disturbance to the devotees and their practices of the Sankirtan movement. So Jagai and Madhai actually were so much against the chanting of the holy names. When they saw, the two brothers saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda, Jagai and Madai took a stone and hit Nityananda on the forehead. When the Lord saw Nityananda being injured, he became so angry that he wanted to release the Sudarshan Chakra. Nityananda actually stops the Lord from doing that and saying that in this avatar, you kill not the miscreants, you don't kill the demons, but you are supposed to be killing the demonic qualities that you see in the people who are existing and teach them nice devotional service. So actually, even though Nityananda was injured, in that sense, you can see how Nityananda is even merciful, more merciful than the Supreme Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So this is the mercy that Balaram exudes when you try to practice devotional service. So therefore, on this lovely day of Balaram Jayanti, we just meditate on the form of Balaram and how Balaram had this kind of service attitude and is an epitome of being an assistant in all the activities of the Lord. And we should take a firm resolve that we should assist Balaram in serving the Lord nicely to attain spiritual perfection. So then we all pray sincerely for the mercy of Nityananda or for the mercy of Balaram, so that we may attain success in our spiritual lives. So this is really the significance of Lord Balaram and his pastimes. And we were actually around the 45th verse of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And we have spoken a lot about Balaram today, as today is Balaram Jayanti. And we don't have too many people, maybe they're all engaged in the Raksha Bandhan celebrations, which is also coinciding today. So we had actually done until sloka number 44. So we'll not make progress on the study of Bhagavad Gita today, but we'll just read two verses, verse number 44 and verse number 45. And we'll read the purports to these verses by Srila Prabhupada and try to understand these verses better. And then next week, we will continue the study of Bhagavad Gita from verse number 46. So this is the section which is leading us on to Ekanishta Bhakti or Ananya Bhakti to the Lord, undeviated Bhakti to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in that connection, the 44th verse of the Bhagavad Gita tells us, Bhogaishvarya prashaktanam taya apahrita chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhihi samadhau na vidhiyate. Okay. Bhogaishvarya prashaktanam taya pahartaschechasam vyavasayatmika buddhihi samadhau na vidhiyate. So the translation of this verse is, in the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord do not take place. So that is an automatic risk whenever we get attracted to bhoga or too much of sense enjoyment, and Aishwarya, which is too much of material opulence. So when we see a very materially opulent place, immediately our minds get completely tossed over and we are just gaping at the material opulence around us. So whenever that happens, Bhoga and Aishwarya, if we get excessively attached to them, we get completely bewildered by such things. And in that state of bewilderment, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, Samadhi means fixed mind. The Vedic dictionary, in the Nirukti Vedic dictionary, it is explained as when the mind is fixed for understanding the self, it is supposed to be samadhi. So the mind is supposed to be fixed in understanding the self and not get attracted to bhoga and aishwarya. So the state of samadhi or fixed in the self is never possible for persons interested in material sense enjoyment, and they are bewildered by such temporary things. They are more or less condemned by the process of material energy. So, the more we get involved with the material energy of the Lord, the more condemnable it is considered for the purpose of spiritual advancement. And the continuation of this verse is sloka number 45, which is Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna Nirvandvos Nityas Satvasto Niryoga Shema Atmavan. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties of gain and safety, and be established in the self. So, very important thing is being pointed out, because many times we've seen so many people who give so much importance for studying the different Vedas. Yeah. So he says that we always hear people saying he studies the Rig Veda, he studies the Atharva Veda, he is an expert in Sama Veda, yeah, or he's an expert in Yajur Veda. So we must understand that these Vedas are deal with mainly the subject of karma kanda or fruitive activities, which is subject to the three modes of material nature. So he says, Arjuna, please transcend these modes. See, more than 95% of the content of the Vedas are concerned with the subject of sense enjoyment and fruitive enjoyment or karmakandic activities. Karma means activity, karmakandic means activities that are meant to give you material fruitive results in the material world. So most of the Vedas have information about this, and many times through study of the Vedas, we may forget the real objective of the study of the Vedas, which is Vedescha Sarvair Aham Eva Vedyo. Of all the Vedas, the I am to be known, Krishna says. So that is, through all the study of the Vedas, the purpose of knowing the Vedas or studying the Vedas, the real purpose is to know me, Krishna says. Many times, because it has got so many verses dealing with karma kanda, it might result in us getting Bhogaishwarya Prashaktana, Taya Apahrita Chetasam, and that is, our minds become too attached to Bhoga and Aishwarya, and we may get bewildered by such things. And in that state of bewilderment, we will never come to a situation of Vyavasayatmika Buddhihi. What is the meaning of the word Vyavasayatmika? Fixed in determination. So fixed intelligence, Vyavasayatmika Buddhihi, does not take place. Samadhav na vidiyate, does not take place. So that is the difficulty sometimes if you go too much deep into the study of the Vedas, where the real subject of the Vedas may get completely missed out. So Krishna gives this warning, and then we will continue from verse number 46 onwards in our next class. In our next class, we are expecting that some more new people will be joining. So I'm sure that we will have a lot more attendance next week. So we meet at the same time next week at 8 o'clock for continuing the study of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so thank you all very much. So meditate on Lord Balaram, and let us all beg for the mercy of Balaram that we will get plenty of mercy from Balaram. For what? To get devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Shri Krishna. Hare Krishna. Nikolai had a question.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. So, Nikolai, we are meeting the same time next week at 8 o'clock. I think this was your question, Nikolai. Okay. So, have a restful sleep. Oh, what's that? On Monday, yes. Okay. So, if there are no other topics, then let's meditate on Balaram and his wonderful form. Have a restful sleep and wake up to another wonderful Krishna conscious day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nikolai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Leave the meeting.
Gugan, how are you?
Я мало посуну, что ли? Что это такое?
Встреча закончила.
А?
Встреча закончила.
Серия?
Ага.
Давай смотреть график. Давай кнопку. Или у тебя есть?
Не, мне не надо.
Он что, сопли вызывает?
Немножко.
Что такое?
Хватит.
Ты что-то можешь открыть, а я...
Хороший. Хари Кришна. Хари.
Хари Кришна.
Кришна, Кришна. Хари Рама. Рама. Хари Кришна. Понял.
А сразу где добавить? Если я уже добавил.